Marcus Bell woke up before the sun, like he always did. His small apartment in Atlanta was quiet except for the soft hum of the old refrigerator in the kitchen. He rubbed his eyes and looked at the clock. 5:30 in the morning. Time to start another day. He walked to his daughter's room and gently opened the door. Zoe, his 6-year-old daughter, was still asleep, her small body wrapped in a blanket covered with stars. Marcus smiled. She looked so peaceful. He didn't want to wake her yet. He had 30 more minutes before he needed to get her ready for school. Marcus was a single father. His wife, Denise, had passed away 3 years ago after a long illness. Since then, it had just been him and Zoe. He worked as a mechanic at a small garage on the edge of the city. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Most days, though, it felt like he was barely holding things together. He walked into the kitchen and opened the cabinet. There was cereal, milk, and some bread. He made breakfast for Zoe, humming a soft tune under his breath. This was his favorite part of the day, before the world got loud and hard. At 7, Zoe walked into the kitchen rubbing her eyes. "Morning, Daddy," she said with a sleepy smile. "Morning, baby girl," Marcus replied, kissing the top of her head. "Ready for school?" "I guess," she said, sitting down at the table. After breakfast, Marcus drove Zoe to school in his old truck. The engine made a strange noise every time he started it, but he didn't have the money to fix it properly. He had learned to live with small problems like that. As long as it got them where they needed to go, it was fine. After dropping Zoe off, Marcus went to work. The garage was busy that day. Cars needed oil changes, brake repairs, and tire replacements. Marcus worked hard, his hands covered in grease by noon. He liked his job. There was something satisfying about fixing things, about taking something broken and making it work again. During his lunch break, Marcus checked his phone and saw a message from his landlord. It said that his rent for the month had already been paid. Marcus frowned. He hadn't paid it yet. He always paid on the 5th, and it was only the 3rd. He called the landlord to ask about the mistake. "No mistake," the landlord said. "Someone paid it online this morning. Full amount, plus next month too." Marcus was confused. "Who paid it?" "I don't know," the landlord said. "It just came through as an anonymous transfer." Marcus sat there, staring at his phone. This wasn't the first time something strange like this had happened. A few months ago, Zoe's school fees had been paid in full, right before they were due. He had asked the school office about it, but they said the payment came from an unknown source too. And last winter, when his truck's engine finally gave out, a new engine had somehow shown up installed, with a note simply saying, "Keep driving. Keep going." At first, Marcus thought it might be a mistake, or maybe some kind of charity program he had signed up for without remembering. But the payments kept happening, always at the right time, always exactly when he needed help the most. He never mentioned it to anyone, not even his sister, because he didn't know what to say. Who would believe him? That evening, after picking up Zoe from school, Marcus decided to take her to the park. It was one of the few free things they could enjoy together, and Zoe loved the swings. The autumn air was cool, and the leaves were turning shades of orange and red. While Zoe played on the swings, Marcus sat on a bench nearby, watching her and thinking about the mysterious payments. He wondered if it could be one of Denise's old friends, or maybe someone from her family trying to help without wanting credit. But nobody in her family had that kind of money. As he sat there thinking, a woman approached the bench. She was tall, dressed in a simple but expensive-looking coat, and she carried herself with quiet confidence. Marcus didn't recognize her, but there was something familiar about her eyes. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice calm and gentle. "May I join you?" Marcus looked up, surprised. Sure," he said, moving over slightly to make room on the bench. The woman sat down, keeping a respectful distance. She watched Zoe playing on the swings for a moment before speaking again. "She's beautiful," the woman said. "How old is she?" 6, Marcus said, still a little cautious. "You have kids?" The woman's expression changed slightly, something sad passing behind her eyes. "No," she said softly. "Not yet." They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching Zoe laugh as she swung higher and higher. Then the woman spoke again. "My name is Evelyn," she said, holding out her hand. "Marcus," he replied, shaking her hand. Her handshake was firm, confident. "I come to this park sometimes," Evelyn said. "It helps me think." "Do you come here often?" "When we can," Marcus said. "It's one of the few things that doesn't cost anything." Evelyn nodded. though something in her face suggested she understood more about his situation than she let on. Life can be hard sometimes, she said, especially when you're doing it alone. Marcus glanced at her, curious about her words. You seem to know something about that. More than you might think, Evelyn said, a small, mysterious smile on her lips. They talked for almost an hour, about small things at first, the weather, the changing leaves, Zoe's love of swings. But slowly, the conversation grew deeper. Evelyn asked about his work, about Denise, about how he managed everything on his own. Marcus found himself opening up more than he expected to a stranger. There was something about Evelyn that made him feel comfortable, like she genuinely cared about his answers. What Marcus didn't know was that Evelyn Carter was not just any woman sitting on a park bench. She was one of the wealthiest people in the city, the owner of a company worth billions of dollars. She had recognized him the moment she saw him from across the park, though he had no idea who she really was. Evelyn had been watching over Marcus and Zoe from a distance for years, quietly making sure they were taken care of. The reasons behind her secret support went back many years, to a night that had changed her life forever, a night that Marcus barely remembered, but one that Evelyn could never forget. As the sun began to set, Zoe ran over to the bench, her cheeks pink from the cold. "Daddy, can we get ice cream?" she asked, breathless from playing. Marcus laughed. "We'll see, baby girl." Evelyn stood up from the bench, smoothing her coat. "It was nice meeting you both," she said. "Maybe I'll see you here again sometime." "Maybe," Marcus said, smiling politely, still unaware of who she really was. As Evelyn walked away, she glanced back one more time at Marcus and Zoe, her heart heavy with a secret she had carried for years. She knew that someday, the truth would have to come out. But for now, she was content just to watch over them, quietly, from a distance, the way she had been doing since the day Marcus had unknowingly saved her life. Little did Marcus know, this chance meeting at the park was only the beginning of a story that would change both of their lives forever. Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself returning to the park more often, and each time, it seemed Evelyn happened to be there too. At first, he told himself it was just chance. Atlanta was a big city, but the park near his apartment wasn't that crowded, and maybe she lived nearby. But after the fourth or fifth time, he started to wonder if there was something more to these meetings. Zoe had grown fond of Evelyn almost instantly. She would run up to her with stories about school, about her friends, about the drawings she made in class. Evelyn always listened carefully, asking questions, showing real interest in every small detail. Marcus noticed the way Evelyn's face softened whenever Zoe spoke, like she was trying to memorize every word. One afternoon, as they sat together watching Zoe play, Marcus decided to ask the question that had been on his mind. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Of course," Evelyn replied. "What do you do?" "For work, I mean." Evelyn paused for a moment before answering. "I run a company," she said simply. "Nothing too exciting." "What kind of company?" "Investments, mostly," she said, keeping her answer vague. "Buying and building things. Helping people when I can." Marcus nodded, not pushing further, though something about her answer felt incomplete. There was a certain way she carried herself, a quiet confidence that made him think she was leaving out important details. But he didn't want to pry. After everything he'd been through, he had learned that people had their own reasons for keeping parts of their lives private. As the weeks went by, Evelyn began showing up not just at the park, but occasionally near the garage where Marcus worked. She would stop by with coffee, chatting with him during his breaks. His coworkers started to tease him about it, asking if he had a new girlfriend. Marcus would just laugh it off, though secretly, he had begun to enjoy her company more than he wanted to admit. One Saturday, Evelyn invited Marcus and Zoe to a small cafe downtown. It wasn't fancy, just a cozy little place with good pastries and warm lighting. Zoe ordered a hot chocolate with extra whipped cream, and Evelyn ordered the same, making Zoe giggle with delight. While Zoe was distracted with her drink, Marcus leaned closer to Evelyn. "Can I ask you something else?" he said. "Go ahead," Evelyn replied. "Do you know anything about the payments?" Evelyn's expression flickered, just for a moment, but she quickly composed herself. "What payments?" she asked, her voice carefully calm. Marcus studied her face closely. "Someone's been paying my rent, my daughter's school fees, even fixed my truck's engine once. It just shows up, no explanation. I thought maybe, I don't know, maybe you'd have some idea." Why would you think I'd know anything about that? Evelyn asked, her tone gentle but guarded. I don't know, Marcus admitted. Just a feeling, I guess. Evelyn reached for her coffee cup, taking a slow sip before answering. I think, she said carefully, there are good people in this world who like to help others without wanting recognition. Maybe someone out there just wants to see you and your daughter do well. It wasn't really an answer, but Marcus let it go for now. Still, the feeling in his gut told him that Evelyn knew more than she was saying. That night, after putting Zoe to bed, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, going through old boxes of papers from before Denise passed away. He wasn't sure what he was looking for exactly, just some kind of clue that might explain the mysterious payments. As he sifted through old photographs and documents, something caught his eye. A newspaper clipping from almost 10 years ago, one that Denise had kept for reasons he never fully understood. The article was about a car accident on a bridge outside the city. A young woman's car had skidded off the road during a storm and crashed into the river below. A stranger, a young man passing by, had jumped into the freezing water and pulled her out just before the car sank completely. The woman survived, but the man who saved her disappeared before anyone could get his name. The article included a small, blurry photo of the rescue scene, taken by another witness at the time. Marcus stared at the photo for a long time, something about it feeling strangely familiar. He couldn't see the face clearly, but the memory stirred something deep inside him, something he had almost forgotten about his own past. 10 years ago, before he met Denise, Marcus had been driving home from a late shift when he saw a car go off the road during a bad storm. Without thinking, he had jumped into the icy water and pulled a young woman to safety. He remembered driving away afterward, cold and shaking, never telling anyone what happened because he didn't want any attention. He hadn't thought about that night in years. Could it be the same woman? Marcus felt his heart race as he studied the blurry photo again, trying to see if there was any resemblance to Evelyn. It was impossible to tell for certain from the old photo, but the feeling in his chest told him he might be on to something important. Meanwhile, across the city, Evelyn sat in her office, staring out at the skyline from her tall glass window. Her assistant, a sharp and observant woman named Priya, walked in with a folder of documents. The reporters are getting curious, Priya said, setting the folder on Evelyn's desk. Someone from the Business Weekly is asking questions about the anonymous donations tied to your foundation. They're trying to trace the payments back to a specific family in the city. Evelyn's stomach tightened. Did they find anything? Not yet, Priya said. But you know how persistent reporters can be. If they connect the dots, they'll find out you've been personally funding a mechanic and his daughter for years, and they'll want to know why. Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment. Let them ask questions, she said finally. I'm not ashamed of helping people. It's not about being ashamed, Priya said carefully. It's about protecting your privacy and his. If this becomes a story, his whole life gets picked apart by strangers. Is that really fair to him? Evelyn understood the risk all too well. She had built walls around her personal life for years, keeping her past hidden from the public eye. But Marcus and Zoe had become something she hadn't expected, a connection that felt more real than anything else in her carefully controlled world. I'll figure it out, Evelyn said quietly, though she wasn't entirely sure how. That night, as Marcus lay awake thinking about the newspaper clipping, and Evelyn sat alone in her office thinking about the reporters closing in, neither of them realized just how close the truth was to finally being revealed. Both were holding pieces of the same story, unaware that fate was slowly bringing them together in ways neither could control. The next morning, Marcus decided he needed answers. He couldn't shake the feeling that Evelyn was somehow connected to that night on the bridge and to the mysterious payments that had been keeping his family afloat. He didn't know what he would say to her, or how he would even begin to ask, but he knew he couldn't ignore the truth any longer. Little did he know, Evelyn had already made a decision of her own. She was tired of hiding. It was time to finally tell Marcus everything, before someone else told him first. Marcus arrived at the park early that afternoon, hoping Evelyn would show up like she usually did. Zoe was with his sister for the day, so it was just him, sitting on the same bench where they had first met. He brought the old newspaper clipping with him, folded carefully in his jacket pocket. An hour passed before he saw Evelyn walking toward him. She looked different that day, less composed than usual, like she was carrying something heavy on her shoulders. She sat down beside him without her usual warm smile. I need to tell you something, she said before he could speak. I need to ask you something too, Marcus replied, pulling the folded newspaper clipping from his pocket. He handed it to her carefully. Evelyn's hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the paper. Her eyes moved over the old photograph, and Marcus watched as recognition, and something like relief, spread across her face. You remember, she whispered. I wasn't sure, Marcus said. Until right now. It was you in that car, wasn't it? 10 years ago, on the bridge. Evelyn nodded slowly, her eyes filling with tears. It was raining so hard that night. I lost control of the car. I remember sinking, thinking that was it, that I was going to die in that river. And then someone pulled me out. I never saw his face clearly. Everything was blurry, but I remember his voice telling me to hold on, that I was going to be okay. That was me, Marcus said quietly. I never told anyone. I didn't want the attention. I just wanted to make sure you were safe, and then I left. I tried to find you for years, Evelyn said. I hired people to search for the man who saved me, but there were no clues, no name, nothing. Eventually, I stopped looking, but I never stopped thinking about that night. So how did you find me? Evelyn wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. About 4 years ago, I saw a photo in a local newspaper. It was a small article about a mechanic shop giving free car repairs to families in need during the holidays. There was a picture of you, working under a car, and something about you felt familiar. I couldn't explain it, but I had a feeling. I hired someone to look into your background quietly, and when I learned more about your story, about your wife passing away, about you raising your daughter alone, I couldn't stay away. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how to face you directly. I didn't know how to explain why a stranger wanted to take care of you. So you started paying for things, Marcus said, understanding now. The rent, the school fees, the truck engine. Yes, Evelyn admitted. I know it might seem strange, maybe even wrong, doing it all secretly like that. But you saved my life, Marcus. You gave me a chance to keep living, to build everything I have now. I just wanted to give something back, even if you never knew it was me. Marcus sat quietly for a moment, processing everything. Part of him felt overwhelmed, almost embarrassed that someone had been secretly supporting his family for years without his knowledge. But another part of him felt something deeper, a strange sense of connection to this woman who had been carrying gratitude and guilt for a decade. You didn't have to do all that, Marcus said finally. I didn't save you expecting anything back. I know, Evelyn said. That's exactly why I wanted to help. Because you didn't ask for anything. You just did the right thing and disappeared. That kind of person is rare, Marcus. I wanted to make sure you and Zoe never had to struggle unnecessarily, not after what you did for me. They sat together in silence for a while, watching the leaves fall around them. Finally, Marcus spoke again. There's a reporter, isn't there? Someone trying to find out about the payments. Evelyn nodded. Yes. My assistant warned me they're getting close to figuring it out. I wanted to tell you the truth before you found out from a stranger, or worse, before it became some big news story, without you having a chance to understand it first. What happens now? Marcus asked. That depends on you, Evelyn said. I don't want to hide anymore, but I also don't want to make things harder for you and Zoe. If you want, I can find a way to keep this private, keep it between us. Or if you're comfortable with it, we could just let the truth come out naturally, however it happens. Marcus thought about it carefully. He thought about Zoe, about how much she had grown to love spending time with Evelyn over the past few months, about the quiet support that had helped keep their small family stable during the hardest years of his life. He thought about the kind of person Evelyn had shown herself to be, not through her money, but through her patience, her kindness, and her honesty now that the truth was finally out. I don't think we need to hide it, Marcus said. You didn't do anything wrong. You helped a family that needed it, and it turns out we're connected in a way neither of us expected. That's not something to be ashamed of. Evelyn smiled, relief washing over her face. Thank you for saying that. Over the next few weeks, the story did eventually come out, though not in the harsh way Evelyn had feared. A journalist from the Business Weekly ran a feature about Evelyn Carter's quiet philanthropy work, focusing on the touching story of how she had reconnected with the stranger who saved her life a decade earlier. The article portrayed Marcus not as a charity case, but as a hero who had never sought recognition for his actions. Readers across the city were moved by the story, and instead of feeling exposed or embarrassed, Marcus found himself receiving messages of support and admiration from strangers who were inspired by his selflessness. Zoe, who was too young to fully understand the complicated details of grown-up secrets and money, was simply thrilled that Evelyn would now be a more permanent part of their lives. She had grown to think of Evelyn as a close friend, someone who listened to her stories and celebrated her small victories, like learning to ride a bike without training wheels. As for Marcus and Evelyn, their relationship continued to grow beyond the secrets that had once separated them. What started as anonymous kindness slowly transformed into a real friendship built on honesty and mutual respect. They spent more time together, not just at the park, but at family dinners, school events, and quiet evenings talking about their pasts and their hopes for the future. Evelyn eventually stopped hiding her involvement in Marcus and Zoe's life, choosing instead to be present openly, showing up not as a mysterious benefactor, but as someone who genuinely cared about their well-being. She continued supporting local families through her foundation, but her relationship with Marcus and Zoe became something separate from charity, something personal and real. Marcus, for his part, never stopped being the humble, hardworking man he had always been. He continued working at the garage, teaching Zoe the value of kindness and honesty, just as he always had. But now, he no longer carried the weight of financial uncertainty alone. He had someone who understood him, who respected his independence, and who had entered his life not out of pity, but out of genuine gratitude and care. Looking back, Marcus often thought about that stormy night 10 years ago, how a simple decision to help a stranger had quietly shaped the course of his entire life. He never imagined that one small act of kindness would eventually bring him a friendship, and eventually love, with someone as remarkable as Evelyn. And Evelyn, who had spent years searching for a way to repay a debt she believed she could never fully settle, finally understood that the greatest gift she could give wasn't money or security, but her honest presence in the lives of the people who had once saved her own.